Good evening, everyone. We welcome you to the City of West Jordan Planning Commission meeting this Tuesday, June 19th, 2018. We have six of seven planning commissioners in attendance. We excuse Commissioner Judy Hansen this evening. We extend a warm welcome to city staff and also citizens in the audience, and also to those who are participating via live stream this evening. First item of business, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance offered by Dakota Pearson, one of the scouts in our audience. If you would please come forward and stand at the podium and help us with the pledge. Thank you, Dakota, and thanks to all the scouts being in attendance. Thanks for participating in the civic meeting this evening. We have a consent calendar consisting of two items, 1A and 1B, the approval of minutes from June 5th, 2018, and My Snowy, 1824 West, 9000 South, temporary use permit for 150 days in an SC2 zone with Michelle Ryder as the applicant. Commissioner Green.
I move that we approve consent calendar items 1A and 1B.
Commissioner England.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Green and a second by Commissioner England. Is there any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's please vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 6-0. Our first public hearing this evening is Gardner Lane Subdivision, 1825 West, Gardner Lane, preliminary subdivision plat, 3 lots on 1.43 acres in an R1-10D zone. McNeil Engineering, Robert Poirier. Thank you, Mr. Gardner, is the applicant. Are you here this evening, sir? Please feel welcome to come forward and present your application for us.
My name is Robert Poirier. I was the engineer of record on the project for one of my clients, and he's asked me to come here this evening just to present this small project to you. The average lot size is a couple of thousand feet larger than the R110 zone permits, so they seem like they should be very nice lots, and it's going to provide some connectivity on some roads that the engineering staff has asked us to provide. And there will be some additional work done out on Gardner Lane to finish the curb and gutter and make it a little better drivable street there as well. So that should make it flow a little bit nicer across there with the finished road. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Poirier. Any questions for the applicant this evening? Commissioner England.
Just what are the lot sizes? It's a little hard to read on here, if you know.
I think they're in the 12,000 foot range, and the one on the far south is a little larger than that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Well, we'll reserve some time for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Elgin, you have this item for the city?
Good evening, Commissioners. As Mr. Poirier said, the subdivision is proposing 3 lots along Redwood Road that will connect directly with the existing Cajun Estates. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Gardner corrected me. It's on Gardner Lane and not Redwood Road. I'm sorry. The 3 lots, actually, to answer the question, 2 of them are in the 12,000 square foot range. The lot 3 is 19,000 square foot range. It's going to connect that existing road up to Gardner Lane, and it will actually stub down into the empty lots to the east that will allow connectivity for future development. When you go back here, you can see everything on that side to the east of that canal is medium density residential, and it's all zoned R110. To the north, we have some half-acre lots. It all fits in with the zoning. It all is compatible with the general plan, and staff recommends that you approve the project.
Thanks, Ms. Elgin. Any questions for her this evening? Seeing none, we'll open this up as a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak on this item, please feel welcome and invited to do so at this time. And we'll close the public comment section. Yes, please come forward, sir. You beat the buzzer. Nice job. Could you please state your name and address for the public record?
Cody Nelson, 8694 South Cajun Circle. The only concern I have is maybe that being a thoroughfare for cars to come through. We do have a lot of children in the neighborhood, 6 of my own, another family with 5. So if that becomes, we may need to add a speed bump or something. We would hope that the traffic will continue to go to 1850, I believe is the road there. But I don't know, don't feel it's necessary at this point, but it may become necessary in the future if we have a lot of traffic through that area. We do have the cul-de-sac where a lot of kids do play. So we would just be concerned for the safety of those kids. If there was a way to put a railroad arm in there and not let anybody in, but those that live in the neighborhood, we would appreciate it, but we'd probably knock that over too. So anyway, that would be my only concern at this point.
Duly noted. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Any other comment this evening? We will close the public comment section then, and let's get an answer to that, please. Ms. Elgin, thoughts on that? Plus, we have our city engineer and traffic guru, Nate Nelson, Bill Baranowski. Anybody want to chime in on that comment?
Generally, I would say that probably is not a contender for a speed bump because there's not going to be much volume, but it is something that would always be an option if the speeds and the volumes met the criteria that we have established.
Okay, thank you. So we do have some objective criteria there, and currently the forecast that doesn't meet or exceed that. Okay, thank you. Discussion leading to a possible motion. Commissioner Green.
Well, I have one comment that'll lead to a motion with a condition. I know that a lot of times when we have stub roads, as the stub road gets stubbed and then somebody decides to move it on through into the neighboring property, people are surprised that road goes through. So I know Commissioner Hanson, one of her big things is that we put the public on notice of having that stub road could go through. And so I'm going to make a motion that says, based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission approve the preliminary subdivision plat for Gardner Lane on approximately 1.43 acres and containing 3 lots located at 1825 West Gardner Lane, subject to conditions 1 through 7. 1 through 6 on page 2 of the staff report, and adding condition 7 that on the stub we put a sign that says reserved for future use and that a road would go through there, whatever the wording would be, but just put a sign on that stub that notifies people that road could go through in the future.
Can you just add in there, as the city manager directs staff? And so it looks like the city manager is directing this and not the planning commission, because that is work that the staff will have to go out and do. We'll have to formulate something. And so I'd prefer to leave it up to him, but I like the motion, but as long as we can make it clear that the city manager is okay with it.
Okay.
Okay.
With what I said, with as long as the city manager's okay with it.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion? Commissioner Hatch.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Green and a second by Commissioner Hatch. Discussion to the motion? I guess I would chime in and say I agree. The city for which Commissioner Hansen worked for in the past has those signs, and it seems that we get quite a few people coming in complaining that they didn't know that views would be obstructed or that future development would be there, and they were told by developers that, you know, that this view would be theirs forever. So that's always good to know to put the residents on notice. Commissioner Hatch, did you have anything else?
No, just a second.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's please vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 6-0. Best wishes with the subdivision. Thank you, Mr. Poirier. Item number 3 on the agenda is a text amendment to amend the 2009 West Jordan Code, sections 13-2, definitions, and 13-5E-3, permitted and conditional uses, adding a definition for a microbrewery and adding microbrewery as a permitted use in the SC3 zone with citywide applicability. The City of West Jordan is the applicant, with Larry Gardner giving us the report.
So Economic Development has been working with an applicant that wants to establish a microbrewery at Jordan Landing, particularly in this case in the entertainment, what they're now calling the entertainment village, and that'd be the portion around the theater, the theater and the restaurants in that area. The plans that Foursquare has for the entertainment village is a splash pad, and they're going to take one building down and put a large lawn area in there, kind of open it up. But where the microbrewery is looking at leasing is where the Deseret Book was, that went out of business a couple of years ago. And so a microbrewery is different than a normal tavern in that all of the beer or malt beverages that they produce, it's not a distillery, so they don't make hard liquors, but all of the beer or malt beverage is produced at the facility. And this applicant, their business model is to sell a large portion of it at the facility, but also have the ability to wholesale it or sell it at places like the State Fair, or if there's other restaurants in Jordan Landing or around the valley that want to purchase their beer and have it on tap, they have the ability to do that. So it's kind of and also retail sell, bottled product there. So it's kind of their goal is to be manufacturing the product and selling the product in a retail setting, where in the past retail's been retail, manufacturing's been manufacturing. It kind of blends the two business types together. Now it's been done with a great amount of success in Salt Lake City and Park City over the last, I'd say, 25 years. There's been several companies that have become very large being microbreweries, and this applicant is looking to establish in West Jordan at Jordan Landing. And so the definition that has been created for microbrewery is microbrewery retail. And the reason I put retail in is to differentiate. This is not an industrial operation. It still needs to maintain a retail component. Means a commercial business that manufactures on-premise up to 5,000 barrels, or 1 barrel equals 31 gallons per year. And that figure was taken from the existing definition in a brew pub, but their limit is 3,000 barrels a year. 5,000 barrels, it might seem like a lot, but if you're an Anheuser-Busch, that's probably what they produce in about 10 minutes. So it really isn't a lot. But the 31 gallons per barrel was taken right out of another part of our ordinance. Gallons per year for fermented malt beverages and handcrafted beer, which are sold for consumption on or off premises according to Utah state law. Now, Commissioner Green brought up a good point. The state of Utah regulates alcohol consumption and distribution very closely, I believe. Now, I'm not an expert on that. What I'm trying to deal with here is just the land use. And so, but someone just, to put your mind at ease, someone just can't open up well, I even think there's some federal restrictions on alcohol fermentation. And so I think that it's a fairly regulated industry, and so it won't just be the city looking at it, but it'll also be the state. And then the very last statement, this is a microbrewery shall sell at least 60% of the produced beverage on site as retail sales. That means if they're consuming it in a glass or a mug or a stein, or if they're buying cases of it or a bottle of it or a six-pack, however they sell it, 60% of that has to go out the door as retail sales. Now, in the pre-meeting, it was brought up that that's going to be difficult to enforce. And I agree, and I'm not really looking to quantify it when they first open. However, like I said in the pre-meeting, what I want this to do is maintain more of a retail presence than a manufacturing presence, because it is in a commercial zone and not an industrial or manufacturing zone. Now, I think there's a place for it, excuse me, in the community. And this area of Jordan Landing is probably the area to pick, because it is right in the heart of Jordan Landing. It's an area with a lot of people all the time, and it really does add, because sometimes when there's a movie premiere coming out, there's a real vibe that's going on in the entertainment village, and I think this does nothing but add to that, and I believe in a positive way. Yeah, it's a thing that, and I've been told by several commissioners that there are people that is, I don't know if it's a hobby, but that's what they like to do, is go and taste the different types of beers that people do create. And this person that wants to open this, she is the first brewmaster in the state of Utah, and so for what that's worth. And so with the definition, it then just becomes a microbrewery, retail becomes a permitted use in the SC3 zone. They could have made it conditional, but I really think the definition is probably enforceable enough that I can't see what other conditions the Planning Commission would put to mitigate anything on that, because we already have rules regarding emissions, odors, and that type of things that we can enforce regardless if there's a conditional use permit. So do you have any questions of me?
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Commissioner Green.
I'm just curious where we came up with, or why we want to say that a microbrewery can only produce 5,000 barrels a year.
Quite frankly, that came right out of her business plan. That's what she said she produces a year. We have 3,000 for a brew pub. She says that she feels that's within her capabilities, and it maintains the type of business she wants to build at 5,000 barrels. And so, I don't know if that's a lot or tiny, and like I said, in the scheme of things, like to an Anheuser-Busch, that's probably what they wash down the drain on a yearly basis. I don't know, but that just came right out of her business plan.
Because I guess the reason why I'm asking that question is if somebody else came in to an SC zone and wanted the SC3 zone and wanted to put a microbrewery, I guess I'm wondering what the industry average might be, or if this one takes off, are we gonna? I'd rather write the ordinance a little bit more generic to allow something, another one, or if this business happens to take off and then sells 6,000 barrels a year, that we don't have to amend the ordinance or they're in violation. I'm just wondering if, That's where I'm wondering whether or not we ought to, or if state law defines that or anything else. That's where I'm going with this.
Well, I don't know if it's, I suppose we could take the barrel limitation out of it. And I can tell you where I got the barrel limitation was from the brew pub portion of our ordinance. Now, we don't have a brew pub in West Jordan. Now, in her business plan, she compared herself to the Bohemian and that type of thing. And that seems to be about the range that these type of businesses, that seems to be where they max out. Now, do we need a barrel limitation on there? That's another thing that's going to be difficult to enforce, I don't know, 5,000 gallons. You could be producing that in a week for all I know. I don't have, but it's like Duncan's comment. Something that's a number's easier to enforce than, but my suggestion would either be to leave it as it is or just remove the number completely.
I was just going to indicate, at least it is consistent, like you say, with the brew pub, because 60% of 5,000 is 3,000. So we're basically establishing that 3,000 barrels is the amount of retail, and then you get a little bit more with the microbrewery because there's a certain additional amount that's maybe not retail. But it's the kind of thing you start with some numbers and you see how they work. I know we don't want to necessarily go back and amend ordinances all the time, but I still think it's good to have these different standards that are numerical and they're potentially enforceable. So.
And to add to that, I do know that there was an extensive amount of research that was done when we were contemplating the brew pub and putting that in the code, and so that was done under the previous city planner. So, for what that's worth.
Great, thank you. Other questions to the applicant and or city staff, one and the same? All right, well, let's open this up for public comment. If anybody would like to speak on item number 3 on the agenda, please feel welcome to come forward and do so at this time. And we'll close the public comment section. Thoughts, commissioners? I guess to get the ball rolling, to recap, this is not a restaurant, it's not a distillery, it's not a bar, and I certainly don't want to smack of, putting personal belief or religion in it, but inherently that always seems to be an underlying facet. But we need to remember, as was brought up in the pre-meeting, thank you, that this could go anywhere in an SC3 zone. It makes sense, I believe, in the entertainment district if it's going to be anywhere, but that doesn't preclude others coming in, since we don't have a cap on how many there could be or the proximity toward the other one. This does have economic development approval, and we mentioned this is more high-end users and consumers. Commissioner England, I believe you brought that up, as well as others, that this alleviates problems that might be otherwise inherent to other types of alcohol establishments. But of course, then everyone has the opportunity to use or abuse this wisely or inappropriately, drinking and driving or being responsible. So I just want to make sure that we comprehensively flesh out the issues. Just to double check, this is all of the alcohol brewed on site? Thank you. Commissioner Quinney.
Yes, thank you. So first off, I'm 100% in favor of this, but I'm kind of just piggybacking a little bit on what Commissioner Green said. I understand the 60% threshold that we came up with. I get that. Whatever the number is, we have a number established. The 5,000, I see from his perspective, and I agree with it, that if this thing takes off, I'm watching our live stream here and everybody's cheering and saying, yay to microbrewery. So if this thing takes off and we start selling more than 5,000, do we need to really come back and have this conversation again? if we say it's 60% of whatever she sells, that seems enforceable enough to me, right? Hey, what's your sales? I sold 8,000 barrels. Great. What's 60% of that? We can enforce that. I don't see a reason to say 5,000. If we can just do away with that and make it a little bit more broad, but just leave the 60%, I'm okay with that.
Thank you. Commissioner Luthi.
I too am on board with this. I think that this, in this zone, sounds like a good plan.
Thank you. Other comments? Commissioner Green.
I think it's a good plan, because we're not only are we targeting West Jordan residents, but we're trying to develop that economics that other people from the city come in to do something and give them a reason to come to Jordan Landing. And hopefully nobody from South Jordan's listening to this, but we can steal some business from District and Daybreak. So anything that we can do to boost the and we've seen some of the issues with Jordan Landing, it seems like some of the things have happened in Jordan Landing where it's not been as vibrant. And I think if we can bring the right businesses to Jordan Landing that bring people to the city, and keep people in the city here, I think that's what we want.
Commissioner England.
I agree. I think this is a no-brainer. I think it's good for economic purposes. I think it helps attract people to the Jordan Landing area. I love hearing some of the ideas with the splash pad. I think this is just a great idea. I'm all for it.
A bear splash pad? Yes. Interesting. I missed that part in the staff report, so thank you. Commissioner England. Okay. Other comments leading to a possible motion? I will entertain a motion if anybody has one. Commissioner Quinney.
I'll go ahead and make the motion. Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report, upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to City Council for this application, with the one change that the 5,000 barrel condition, and they can read however, but that we just leave that open and broad.
So no 5,000 or barrels. Take that out. Okay.
But to
Correct.
clarify, leave the 60%.
Leave the 60%, just take out the quantity.
Thank you. Commissioner Green.
I'm going to second that motion.
Discussion?
So, my mic's on, so I'm going to just keep on going. I think when we're looking at what Commissioner Quinney's talking about, I think if you struck the words up to 5,000 barrels through per year of, and so it's so that it reads a commercial business of manufacturers on premises fermented malt beverages and handcrafted beer, I think that would meet the intent of the motion.
Thank you. Is that amenable to you, Commissioner Quinney?
I'm okay with that.
And I assume your second is also, yep. Since you're the one that brought that up, thank you.
It was more of a clarification. But.
Thank you for the clarification. That helps in the wording so that we get it right in the vernacular. Any further discussion to the clarified motion? Let's please vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 6-0. The last item on our agenda this evening is Redwood Road Multimodal Study. The recommendation to City Council to adopt the Redwood Road Multimodal Study Final Report and Implementation Plan dated May 2018, with Bill Baranowski giving our presentation this evening.
Thank you. I almost ask you to vote, should I do the long version or the short version of this slideshow?
Well, I believe that we've studied it. So we certainly want to get on record the pertinent details, but we feel free to cut to the chase, not in an effort to eliminate anything substantial, but we've already read through it. And as you mentioned, page 26 is the main item.
Great.
But we want to respect your time and the committee that spent a year and a half doing this.
So not only I, as Scott Langford, also was part of the committee to help put this together. So Scott, if you want to chime in on any portion of this, feel free. This study was paid for partly by all the cities that did this, involved in the study: Sandy, Salt Lake County, UDOT, Taylorsville. and Salt Lake City. And Westchester Regional Council was really the organizer, and it evolved from being a UTA-only study, looking at transit only, to a lot of other things, multimodal. So it's evolved even up to that, when the start of this study. And the city, I believe, paid about $30,000 for our portion. So it was kind of depending on the population and the part of Redwood Road. Yeah. Sandy participated because there's part of the transit system that goes from Redwood Road to Sandy, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So the vision was to create a united vision that looked at all the modes and created some solutions and a framework that we could implement and get money to build things. So it's important to have a good plan when you're asking for money from federal sources, county and state. So, and also it looks like, hey, we're talking to one another, we're playing nice with our neighbors. And I think it's a really good process to have everybody involved that we did. So I'll skip some of these things. So they gathered a lot of data, land use data, crash data, you name it, and summarized the needs and the problems. And mainly by 2040, there's going to be more traffic and more people using Redwood Road. And transit has some issues, and the roadway has some issues. The walkability, there's some issues with that. And bicycles, there's some big issues. So they've put all these needs together, and they even did a survey. Let's see if I can get to that. How do you back up on this, Larry? So they actually did a survey of about 500 citizens and they went to Smith's in 2 locations on Sunday or on Saturday, and they went to open houses up and down the corridor. So they got a lot of public input and looked at the issues, and they distilled all this into some solutions and came up with a preferred solution for multimodal. And I'll just get to the chase here. One of the issues was land use. One good thing about West Jordan is we have a very good center with a lot of potential based on our land use potential and the transit connections we have here across the street from City Hall. So that was one of the best centers that said, part of this study said we need to focus on that, and it listed Taylorsville and 2 other locations in West Valley and Salt Lake. And it came up with a plan and funding sources and opportunities. So now I'll get to the details. The transit line, the focus of this study says, what can we do to make transit better on Redwood Road? And Redwood Road already has one of the highest ridership corridors in the county, if not the whole state, for buses. And one of the reasons for that is connection to the light rail. So they actually came up with some future funding, if taxes come through and other sources come through, how to boost the bus line and make it better up and down Redwood Road. And if you look at the south, so your question, why is Sandy involved? There is a connection to Sandy on the south end. And so actually, they looked at all the way to downtown Salt Lake too. So not only Sandy's downtown, which is, think about it, Sandy's becoming kind of a downtown on the south end of the valley. And so that would connect all the way to the north end with a bus. But what they did propose to have an enhanced bus and enhanced service on that line, but that all depends on future money that we're looking forward to, maybe with that new tax increase that the county's putting through. Traffic congestion, like I said, southbound is a real issue on Redwood Road, and they did make a few suggestions for improving that. Potential solutions, but actually some of the things they propose for pedestrian enhancements probably going to make congestion a little worse, adding more traffic signals, and I hope that's not the case, but it may be. This is kind of a heat map showing the most walkable areas, and they did study that, and they show some great potential at 70th South, 78th, and 80th South for walkability in the corridor. And they did make the note, hey, we have some intersections that are really wide, and it's a really long distance for pedestrians to cross, and I'll get to that a little bit later in the solutions.
Real quick, Bill,
Yeah.
Can you go back a slide?
Sure, how do I go back? Thanks.
So I just want to point out that as you look at that heat map, I mean, the hottest area, as far as potential goes, I wouldn't say existing potential, is right across the street from here at the track station, which is why Wasatch Front Regional Council and UTA are teaming up with the city to do another feasibility study, kind of revamp the existing master plans that have been proposed for across the street. And so because of this study, they were able to use that as leverage to get funding from WFRC and UTA to I guess, refresh or bring back some vitality to some of those old plans. That RFP is going to be going out in the next few weeks, and we'll get, I'm sure, because I've already gotten a lot of phone calls from private consultant companies to study land use across the street to really enhance and leverage what we have as far as infrastructure with Redwood Road, with the track station. And so this is a great thing, and it was kind of a spin-off from this study that we were able to get that extra funding. So anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And I think some of the techniques for making things better, we'd like to apply those here at the city center, maybe as an example for the rest of the corridor. You know, if we could do it, we could show the rest of the corridor, hey, this is great, let's do it in other places. So I think the city center is a great place to apply these techniques. The bicycle, part of the multimodal study was basically says, hey, bikes can't use Redwood Road unless you're a real foolhardy biker. So I see one or two a week maybe using the corridor. Said, hey, that guy's brave. But UDOT's done a pretty good study saying that instead of Redwood Road, 13th West would be a preferred alternative corridor, and it would function better than Redwood Road for bikes. So that's good to have a study that makes that, puts the facts together, and we're actually been getting some money for 13th West to make that happen. And land use, do you want to comment on that, Scott? On this?
Again, we're actually set up pretty well here in West Jordan with the existing infrastructure, and because of that, I think that the future is bright. I know that we're working with economic development staff at Redwood and 70th South, that redevelopment area, to bring life back to that shopping center, infuse some additional new businesses there. So this is a great slide. It illustrates the correlation, the connectivity between transit and land use, and I think it speaks for itself. But as we move forward with the new businesses at 70th South and Redwood Road, as we look at the city center plan, most of that will come back to you in one form or another, so you'll be able to really see some of these new projects come in the next year or so.
Yeah, so you think about Redwood Road. Wouldn't it be great if some people actually stopped in West Jordan on their commute to and up and down Redwood Road.
Well, they do. They're stopped in traffic is the only problem.
But if they stop to go to the library or, or go to City Hall, I guess, to all the parties at the Viridian, I think there's a lot of things people, the rodeo, did it? And yeah, a lot of people stop at Vasa when I'm coming to work. I have to constantly stop for those people turning into Vasa. So there's a lot of them.
Just to be clear, we love Vasa.
And the county rec center is wonderful too. So this is the study, 200 responses from our citizens. And the citizens pointed out, we need better buses, better pedestrian access back across the street, mainly. Congestion and bikes, so that came out of the study. Then our preferred alternative listed a lot of improvements. Some of the improvements are corridor wide, like improving access, removing driveways, doing medians. And the other study that was done previously in West Jordan looked at medians, so that this will help us get money to put medians up and down the road. And then there's a few bullet points here, like new signals that are coming soon. One at the Target up on the north end of the corridor. That's in the works. And on the south end at Gardner Lane, that's also in the works. That intersection is going to connect soon. So we're going to do our best to stop traffic going north and south on Redwood Road, but hopefully there'll be reasons for people to come to West Jordan, not just pass through. Here's the detailed improvements. So I'm going to show what they mean by a bus station at 8,000 South and pedestrian refuge. And I'll show an example of that. One of the recommendations I didn't agree too much with, but we can look at is adding right turn pockets at Sugar Factory Road, 82 South intersection. And then bus queue jumps, that's when the bus gets to jump over the rest of the traffic. So let's assume they're in the right side of the street. They get to start before the rest of the traffic in case there's a congested intersection. So they're going to make that possible. I don't think they're going to look at a bus-only lane. That'd be a little bit more enhancement if we had a lot of buses, but there's just not enough buses to warrant that. And then connections to bike lanes. We do have bike lanes on 90th South and on 78th South. We might even look at a bike facility along the railroad tracks, along the tracks line, a shared use path. So this is an example of a median refuge, and it's actually, I've heard some complaints from citizens that I'm afraid to cross Redwood Road because I feel like, I'm so close to traffic and it's dangerous. So by having a little island out in the middle, maybe if they're slow, they could stay out there and wait for the next green light, or they could at least feel safer crossing the street. And here's an example from Arlington, Virginia, at Ballston, and they have a double left turn and a nice median island with a little refuge. And I think that's kind of a trend to help pedestrians feel safer, and also look at the width of that crosswalk. It's wide enough for a couple bikes and a lot of pedestrians. They could really fill that crosswalk up and make the pedestrian feel like, hey, I'm more important than a car, possibly. They might take that to the extreme and take their time crossing the street, but at least they feel safer. And so here at City Hall, I think we could look at implementing something like that. And then the shared use paths, what are those going to look like? The previous study that the city did on Redwood Road looked at median design and the shared use path up and down the street. So some standards, this is from Washington State. They show a 10-foot shared use path and at least 5-foot buffer, and they recommend at least 10 feet between the travel lane and the shared use path. And that's called, that's a safe distance for the speed, for 45 miles per hour road. You need at least 10 feet of space to really be safe as a pedestrian. And the buffered bike lane, does everybody know what a buffered bike lane is? It's actually moving the bike lane closer to the curb and putting a little 3-foot buffer between the bike lane and the traffic. So that's what's proposed on 13th West when that gets implemented. And 13th West probably won't have any parking allowed in most of that corridor. So for bus station, I put the best bus station I could find out there. So at least, very least, you'd have a somewhat sheltered station, some seating, and an electronic sign telling you when the next bus is coming, how much time you have to wait. And I've seen the prototype at UTA, and they said those cost about $70,000 to $100,000 per bus station. So any questions?
Thanks very much, Mr. Baranowski. Commissioner Green.
I've got a couple of comments. One, I've walked through those median refuges, probably not too far from Ballston on that road, and so I think they're a great idea. The one thing that I think is we take a look at that, some of that corner piece, you know, if you look at the front end of that median refuge there, it can be cement and kind of be ugly. So I think we ought to take a look at how do we enhance that for West Jordan City, and is there a way to landscape those or make those better so that they fit with the theme of the city. My second comment is, and I love the bus station idea, but the one thing that I would like to see as we look at developing the Redwood Road plan is some sort of pocket for the bus to pull off, so that when they go into that station or they go to a bus stop that's heavily used, the bus pulls in so that they're not blocking traffic for 3 miles because you're waiting for the bus, because that's it's annoying to me, but it slows the traffic down, that if the bus can pull out and then the bus can pull back in, I think we'd be better off with making the traffic flow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think those turnouts are superior. If we can get the right of way, that might be a difficult part. Also, to put in this median and the refuge we'll have to widen the whole street, so it won't be cheap. I think at least $500,000 per intersection, at least.
Definitely agreed on the turnouts, and definitely bikers are people too, right? We certainly want a place for them, but on this busy thoroughfare, I agree. I think that would be safer and make more sense. 13th West instead of on Redwood Road. Going to the general plan, it's even included on our staff report on page 2, where it talks about these parkways and boulevards where they're major arterials, and being an organized spine where they have those wide park strips and well lighted and even street furniture, pedestrian paths for those safe islands when they're crossing. So I agree, Commissioner Green, anything we can do to beautify it and visually reinforce, as it said, that this is a city center. It's downtown, get people to stop. There's a sense of it being a city center, not just a roadway. With the landscape medium, talks about pedestrian scale lighting, underground placement of utility lines, special signage, traffic measures that don't inhibit the street use. I know that's a definite, that's a tough balance to strike, because we're trying to get traffic to flow well, but also have an opportunity for it to be a destination. So anything that could keep us from failing on 5 intersection points, recognizing it's only going to get more populated and dense on the roadways by 2040, as this mentioned. I agree that's a great thing, and thank you so much to everyone that participated over a year and a half to put this study together. Commissioner Luthi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really like the idea of the safe areas for the crossing, but I think the bus turnouts are way more important. The idea of getting them off of the road, I've been that person stuck behind the bus because I was in the wrong lane at the wrong time, and that to me is a way higher priority than, so if we're talking right away and what goes to the right away, that to me is a no-brainer.
Commissioner Green?
My last comment is if we're gonna put a buffered bike lane on 13th West, what are we gonna provide for an alternative for West Jordan City residents to sell their cars? Never mind.
Mr. Baranowski?
Funny you should mention that. So that is a problem on 13th West, and I think the bike lane will help remove that. Us for sale, ourselves a lot along there about the 86 South.
Commissioner England?
There's a new car lot on 90th, the old Platinum Car Wash.
That's right. Commissioner Quinney? No?
You have to sell an Audi, though.
True. Well, this is listed as a public hearing item. If anyone would like to speak on this item, please feel welcome and invited to do so at this time. Seeing no comment, we'll close the public comment section and bring it back for discussion among the planning commissioners. Thoughts, friends? Commissioner Green?
I'm going to move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to adopt the Redwood Road Multimodal Transportation Study as discussed in this report and discussed tonight. Add those and discussed tonight from this recommended staff report.
Thank you. Commissioner Luthi?
I'll second that.
A motion by Commissioner Green and a second by Commissioner Luthi. Do we have any, let's see, motion by Commissioner Green, second by Commissioner Luthi. Any discussion to that motion? Let's please vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 6-0, which brings us to the conclusion of the meeting. A friendly reminder that there is no planning commission on Tuesday, July 3rd. So the next meeting that we will have is Tuesday, July 17th, where we'll go over many map amendment proposals, with it being the quarterly meeting where we put all the pieces of the puzzle together. Any other items from city staff or planning commissioners? Mr. Langford.
Real quick, I appreciate the commissioner's comments about the bus turnouts. I know, based on past conversations with UTA, that they do not like those turnouts. Just it's hard for those drivers to get in and out. However, I think the overall impact would be better if we did seek additional right-of-way to get those. So I appreciate the comments. That should give us better leverage as we work to get that additional right-of-way, and we work with UTA and their operations staff. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Langford. Thank you, city staff, for all the work you do on behalf of all of us as citizens. Thanks to the public for coming out. Thank you, scouts. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Any? Second. Great. We are adjourned till the 17th of July.
We were probably 90 seconds or so online.
So here's the part I'm concerned with the commenting online, that I think is gonna bite us, is if you make a comment, and then I make a comment against your comment, and we're now commenting to each other via Facebook instead of via here. You see what I'm saying?
It's part of the
Well, I was.